My name is Jeffrey St Laurent. This is the live Tuesday call, and had a great conversation with some people that have called in around today's topic, and that's using Facebook Live to get clients. And we're going to dive into this in depth, all the parts about it. We're not going to necessarily cover the technology piece, because the technology is probably the easiest piece, although sometimes that can overwhelm people if you've never done it before. But a simple Google search with how about this, maybe a YouTube video on how to do your first Facebook Live. It's very easy to do. Just go to your profile, hit go live, and it's self-explanatory from there. In a few clicks, you could be live and freaking out probably if it's your first time. But that's what this is for, to help you out, but also today to give you the bigger picture of where this can lead to and how does this actually lead to you getting clients. So before we get going with that, I do record all these live calls and I post them in my university on my website, sellingcoaching.com. So check out my university. Additionally, right on the homepage, I've got a great resource for you called the Ultimate Startup Guide for New Coaches. So very comprehensive there. It's an audio and PDF resource. So enter your name and email. That gets you instant access to the guide. It also puts you in my email community. I urge you to be there just so not only you can see the interaction I have with you from my email community in terms of what I'm delivering there from education and stuff, but also so you can see how I utilize my email community and how I stay in touch with people, which is one of the most vital aspects of having a coaching business, is staying, not only growing an audience, but then staying in contact with them. And then finally, before we get going, I'm available for one-on-one mentor coaching if you know that's something that you require some assistance with, as I help coaches transition to a full-time business, whether you're frustrated with it and you can't quite figure out all the pieces and stay focused with it, or you don't want to get to that spot and really just realize, oh, I just know I need someone that can help me organize my thoughts, fill in the missing pieces, guide me through this thing so I can move forward. Just go to sellingcoaching.com under the Work With Me page, and I've got a form at the bottom, and you could fill out that form, and I will follow up with you directly, and we can certainly go from there. So for right now, we're going to jump into the topic, and that's using Facebook Live to get clients. And there's a lot of things going on with Facebook Live, and one of the first things I want to address as I'll talk about this is in my private Facebook group, and this timely as to why I'm doing this particular call, is my Facebook group, sellingcoaching.com. You can actually check that out on my website, sellingcoaching.com. Right at the top of every page, there's an invitation to join my private group. So that will take you over there if you're not there. But in the pinned post in my private Facebook group, I just launched a new challenge called Make Some Noise. And Make Some Noise is essentially how do we get noticed as coaches to get clients, right? And if we're going to get clients, we need to make some noise. We need to get noticed. And so to start that off, the challenge is essentially using Facebook Live as a medium, and it's using it for 10 consecutive weeks, doing at least one Facebook Live per week for 10 weeks. You can do as many as you want, but I wanted to present what I felt was a very doable challenge that said, hey, can you get on Facebook Live? Even for 30 seconds. It doesn't matter how long. We'll talk about duration in a little bit, but can you get on there just once a week or more? And more importantly, can you do that for 10 consecutive weeks? Because it's not just about, hey, I can do it 1 week and I can go ballistic and do 10 Facebook Lives, but then I don't do it, for the next 2 months, right? That's not what this is about. It's, can you do it once a week for 10 weeks? So that's a basic premise of the challenge. I invite you to definitely check that out. But I'm going off of that so we can start to understand how to utilize that most effectively. And so first, I'll answer the question, why Facebook Live? And how about this? Facebook Live isn't necessarily any better than YouTube Live as an example, or if there's another live broadcast on social media that I might be unaware of at this point, but it's not necessarily any better or worse, right? And why I'm recommending Facebook Live is, well, that's the platform that I'm on where I have my group from. But regardless of that, whatever live platform you use, number one, I would make sure that your audience is there, right? So if you're like, oh, Jeff, I've got some clients that aren't really on Facebook, because I help them say, well, you know what, you're dealing with professionals. It feels like LinkedIn would be at a better platform for you, right? So it doesn't mean that I wouldn't want them to do a Facebook Live. It's just I would rather have them focus on LinkedIn as an example. So if you're going to be doing on Facebook as a social media platform for your business, I would want that to be your primary focus if who you've identified as your target audience, as I like to say, your headline, helping who with what specifically, if they are primarily on Facebook, like my audience, as I help coaches transition to full-time business, I'm there because that's where coaches are. So I'm just hammering that platform. I'm not on LinkedIn. I'm not on Twitter. I could be, but I'm focusing. That's all it is. But regardless of that, the medium of Facebook Live, the reason why I love that so much is because when you are in business for yourself as a coach, you need to be able to speak. You need to be able to speak your message. And you need to be able to speak it in a live format. And when I say a live format, meaning let's just say on stage. So for a Facebook Live, on stage is really no different than I'm doing right now, except for there's a video component. It's a live format. Or if I'm going to get on stage with people at a seminar or workshop, that's a live format. You need to be able to get on stage, whether it's on demand or have with whatever preparation you need. And even though with Facebook Live you can do it on demand, you can have preparation as well if you know when you're going to go live. So regardless of that, you need to be able to go live and talk when I say an unrehearsed manner, meaning you can't be fully scripted when you're live, right? You can have a PowerPoint, you can have something that you follow, you can have some notes, etc. But when you're live, you can't necessarily be like just reading from a script, because then it's just awkward. Let's put it that way, and you see live broadcasts like the news or things like that. And, they might have the stories listed, or they might have a teleprompter, that obviously can help them with that. But they're talking from some points, and then it's a live show. And that's the way we want Facebook Lives to be. But in other words, I want you to get good and work on your craft in a live situation. And so in other words, let's just say you're on Twitter or LinkedIn or another platform, and Facebook isn't your primary platform. The reason I'd still want you to, for instance, participate in a challenge like I'm doing and utilize that platform is because I want you to start practicing at getting good at that medium, because one of the best ways to get clients is from a live format, meaning if I could do a live face-to-face event, and that's where I did it for the first 11, 12 years of my business before I went virtual like I'm doing now. I spoke at face-to-face events, and even after doing it successfully online as well, I will still say there's nothing beats a live face-to-face event in terms of directly getting clients from that. But you need to get good at your craft. You need to get good at speaking. You need to be fluent. You need to be coherent. You need to be able to formulate a message. And the reason I also love Facebook Live is that it starts, or any live event for that matter, but Facebook Live begins to teach you how to speak on demand and tap into your, if you will, inner genius, your creative aspect, the stuff that you don't know that's in your brain yet. And that's why when I say that stuff, I'll revert back to what I just said about you don't want to be scripted is, hey, you know what, if you need to prepare, do your preparation. Maybe you need to think about your topic. Maybe you need to list out bullet points. Maybe you need to even expand and write it out a little bit. But even if you write it out a little bit, what I urge you to do is at a minimum, if you need that guidance, and especially if you're thinking you're going to freak out, something similar to like a PowerPoint at a presentation. PowerPoints aren't meant to be up there as an example, whereas everything's scripted out, so you're just reading the PowerPoint in front of the audience. That's silly. They're supposed to have a picture or some phrases or a word up there that's supposed to not only remind you of what you're talking about, but also keep you on point to keep you moving forward, or so you don't forget your next point. So you can kind of do it similarly, but when you do it, I want you to get into that space of doing it creatively. When I do these live Tuesday calls, and I have a topic, and literally when I write the topic, like today, it's okay, how to use Facebook Live to get clients. I'm coming into the call, that's it. Now, obviously, the topic I know that I can speak about, but I don't know where I'm going to go with this today. I typically like to ask my audience at the beginning of my call, this is my format, was say, hey, what do you want to hear today? Sometimes I get answers, sometimes I don't. But regardless of that, I've got to be able to take that information and I can just start speaking. And I know my time frame is usually I do no more than 30 minutes or so, unless I really get in a zone. But I've over the last, call it 15 plus years, probably more than that because I've been doing live events in the fitness industry, probably 25 years, I've been speaking live in front of people. And trust me, when I started off, I sucked and I wanted to throw up, and I was sick to my stomach, before events. And I still get nervous now, not as bad as I did when I started off with, but what I did was I worked really hard at, getting in front of an audience and being able to, if you will, perform. And that's what this is. It's a performance. and it's a performance but of your language. And that's what I want you to do is get in front of those people and begin to tap into that inner genius where you start to pull out information that you didn't even know existed, and you start to say things where, like I like to say, is like, I can't wait for the Tuesday call because I'm excited to hear what I have to say. I mean, I don't know what I have to say yet, but sometimes I'll get off the call and I'm like, oh, that was a good call. Or sometimes I'll get a call and be like, all right, that was all right. It's still good information, but sometimes I'll get off the call and be like, wow, I really pulled some stuff out today that I really liked. And that can spur on different topics down the road. So I know I went on a little bit about that medium, but that's why I'm such a big promoter of doing that. And in order to do that, you've got to be able to get over the fears and the nervousness associated with that. And you know what? I'm not going to coach you through that, because at the end of the day, whatever, okay, now you know why you're stuck or why you're so scared about it. If you talk to yourself through it, but you're still going to be scared. You've got to get your butt like live. You got to get yourself on stage, so to speak, and just start speaking. And the worst case scenario with it all is that, you know what, it doesn't work out, or it was a horrible live. Odds are many, if anyone's going to see it in the beginning anyways. So you know what, you delete it and you try it again, or you have a technical error. My client before this, my mentoring client, she's like, I did my Facebook Live, and she's like, I did this awesome Facebook Live, and I realized my microphone was on mute the whole time, and I was so pissed, right? So she did it again, but it came out great. So you've just got to trust that you're going to perform. And initially in the beginning, when you don't have any track record with that, you've just got to trust and go with it. So that's the case of why Facebook Live. In terms of things like, I'll go into some of the logistics before I get into the bigger picture of how this all translates to getting clients. In terms of, I talked about delivery, so maybe you have your points, but I want you to be able to speak live and non-scripted. But other than that, in terms of duration of how it all works, I wouldn't recommend right away that you put a duration on it. Obviously, I'd say shorter is better than longer. If you're gonna go longer, you've got to give more details. So if I were to continue on, let's say for the next 20 minutes around the topic that I've already talked about on why Facebook Live, I'm gonna kill that topic and I'm not gonna go anywhere on it. Therefore, I gave enough detail already. I've hammered my points. Therefore, it needs to end, right? So, but if I'm gonna give a lot more details, like I'm gonna start giving a lot more details around this topic, it can warrant a longer runtime, so to speak. So you've just got to, instead of me saying, oh, short or long, or giving you a specific time frame, I'll say in general, shorter is better because people's attention and time spans and things like that. But if you're going to be giving a lot of detail in terms of your content and a lot of specifics, then it's going to require more time. And it's also going to keep people's interest for a longer period of time. So use that as a guideline. I like to think about it as this is, if you're going to do a Facebook Live, definitely, you don't want to be scripted, but definitely know what your main point is. And I'll give this as an example. It's just know, what's my main point? What am I talking about today? Like some of you might have seen my son did a Facebook Live because he's participating in this Make Some Noise challenge as well. And I'm like, hey, before we do this, like you just want to go on and you want to have an introduction and you want to have a main point. And then you want to know what your closing line is. Otherwise, you're going to keep talking and talking and talking. So I said, okay, you're going to say your name. Okay, Keaton St. Laurent. And then I'm like, okay, what's the main point that you want to deliver? And he's like, well, I want to talk about having confidence when you don't have confidence. I'm like, okay. So say, hey, my name's Keaton St. Laurent. Today I'm going to talk about today I'm going to tell you a story about having confidence when you don't have confidence. And then we obviously got to that point. I'm like, well, how do you want to deliver that? And I said, do you have a story you could tell? And he thought for a minute and he's like, yeah, when I played basketball and I hurt my shoulder and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, great. So give him your name, give him what you're going to tell him about, and then tell the story. And then how do you want to close it? And he said something about, so next time you don't have confidence, think of this story and hopefully it will give you some confidence. I'm like, okay, great. So that was his kind of like the bullet point. So I'm like, as you're delivering it, start off with the first 2 points, tell the story, and then get out of there. And so I was just giving you an example of how I worked it through with my son. But the same as this is different for you is just know those bullet points and tell them who you help, and then tell what this point is about, tell the story or tell something, and then make the point and get out of there and see where you gravitate towards. It doesn't matter if it's a minute or 2 minutes or 10 minutes. But again, if you're giving some great content, that's where you want to go from there. What I'd say is don't worry about some of those things in the beginning. Start to see where they go. another tip I'd give you afterwards is watch them back. As painful as you think that might be, you've got to get good at watching yourself, so you know what you're doing and where you can improve. One of the hardest things, I learned this from the fitness industry, is we had to film ourselves when we taught. And I was teaching group exercise and a lot strength training classes, and a lot of it had to do with our physical execution, how we executed the movements. So not only was what we were saying, how we were saying it, but also were we moving well? Were we physical role models, if I can say it like that? Because people were looking at us to say, well, how the heck do I lift this weight? How the heck do I do this? And they're looking at you, and they're going to mimic what you do. So we had to execute the moves properly. So we had to watch our videos back of when we taught, so we could see, like, oh my gosh, I'm horrible, or I'm squatting too low, or I'm locking my elbows out, or something like that. So same thing here, is you've got to watch yourself back and be like, can you hear me? Can you understand me? Can you see me? Little things like that. Am I talking too quickly? Am I, you fill in the blank. And like, oh, does my house look good behind me? Did you have dirty laundry on the floor? Do you need to close your closet doors or whatever? I mean, it's simple things like that. And that's how you can give yourself some honest feedback, and how you can improve and get better on your craft every time that you do it. And that's kind of the method of getting better as we do this, right? So those are some of the tips on how to make it better, and in terms of delivering it. And then obviously it's just the consistency of that. So now let me talk about a few more things, and this is all going to translate into how we get clients from this, because obviously the better product that we have, the better we are, the better we can articulate, the better we're fluent with our message. Obviously, the more confident we are with our delivery as well. Makes us more attractive, if you will, as a person. Obviously, it's not a physical attraction. That doesn't hurt. I would groom yourself when you go Facebook Live, depending on where your audience is and things like that. I'm not talking get, dressed up and all dolled up, but I mean, think of your appearance. It can't hurt to do that. But also your attractive energy with your message and their confidence. That's what I'm talking about from attraction factor. But then there's other things, like in terms of, how do we do Facebook Lives in terms of announcing it? Well, what I would do is I would consider having them on a consistent basis. I do my weekly live events with my Live Tuesday calls. A lot of my mentoring clients, I help create a marketing system for email and also social media revolving around a live event, maybe like a Facebook Live. A lot of my clients do weekly live Facebook lives, if you will. It's like a live show. So I'd recommend, doing it on a consistent basis. If you can, on a consistent day. If your schedule doesn't allow that, just know that, hey, like even with this challenge, I want you to do it, the Make Some Noise challenge in my Facebook group. Do it once a week for 10 weeks. So I don't care if it's on the same day or not, but if you can't do the same day, just know when am I going to do my Facebook Live this week, right? So have a planned time for it, just like you would a workout, or just like you would a client, or just like you would you fill in the blank. Right? If you're going to get it done, you've got to have a planned time for it. Otherwise, it just never gets done, and it's the end of the week, and oh crap, I haven't done it. Oh well, I'll do it next week. That's not how you run a business. So that's in terms of doing that. And then when you know you're doing it, you can announce it. I would announce it. I would create a Facebook event. So when if you're in my Facebook group as an example, or if you like my Facebook page for selling coaching, I create an event in both of the group and my Facebook page. You can even create an event on your Facebook profile. I call that your personal profile. Different from a business page, different from a Facebook group as an example, but create an event and call it your live show. And I'm going to go live tomorrow at noontime, or whatever time you're going to do. And here's the topic, and here's what I'm going to be talking about. Write a 2 to 5 sentence description on what you're going to talk about. Even if you don't know what all the details are, like what's the topic, and just extrapolate some thoughts of what you might talk about from there, and use that as a launching point when you do your live show. So you can do that. You can invite people to that from the event itself. If you've got a group, and depending on the size of the group, if smaller groups, it automatically invites everybody in the group. Even a larger group like mine, if people's notifications are turned on in the group, they'll get a notification via email saying, hey, there's a live event tomorrow at Tuesday at noon. If you want to go live, in a couple hours, or even in 30 minutes, why not create a group now? Create an event now, announce it now, post it on your profile, going live in 30 minutes, in 20 minutes. A little while I used to do Facebook Live pop-up shows in my Facebook group. And it was just like, all right, I had a little time. I had a client cancellation, or I had a bit lighter day client-wise. I get in my group, hey, I'm going to go live in 30 minutes, in 20 minutes, in 15 minutes. And I would just announce it. It would just create a little bit of buzz, even if it was X amount of minutes before the show. So yeah, certainly announce that. In terms of where we do our Facebook Lives, think about it like this. I mean, if you've got a Facebook group and the group is fairly large, you have to decide what fairly large is. Fairly large could be, a couple hundred people, a couple thousand people. But either way, you could certainly do it in that group. But just know that if you do it in the group, like a private group as an example, only the people in the group can see it live and or the recording afterwards. And you can't share that anywhere outside the group. So if I do a Facebook Live in my private Facebook group, I cannot share that outside because the content in a private group, as an example, is only for the people in the private group. So in that case, I could, though, share it if I were to download it from Facebook and then, put it on a platform like YouTube or my website or something like that. But in terms of just a simple Facebook share, I cannot do it that way. Therefore, initially, especially if you're starting off or your group's small, I would do it most likely from your business page, or I would do it from your Facebook profile. And odds are right away you're going to get the most views and you're going to get noticed the most from your Facebook profile, because that's where all your friends are going to be able to see it or not. And if you're wondering, oh my God, do I want to do it on my Facebook profile? And I don't want all my friends to think I'm just doing all my business stuff from there. It's like, you know what? Make some noise. Like, you got to get noticed. Like, do it from there to start off with. I mean, gosh, my son did it from I did it from my Facebook profile because, I didn't want to have him do it from my Facebook group because I'm doing my lives from there and no one else should do that stuff. So I wanted to role model that for him too. He did it from my Facebook profile, and it was just like within like less than 24 hours, he had over 500 views. You know what I mean? And then I shared it in my Facebook group, and I shared it in some other groups as a version of like, hey, this is what you can do. And I think after like 2 or 3 days, he's had over 1,200 views. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm like, I wish I'd get that on my stuff, But I think a great place to start off would just to do it on your Facebook profile to start off with, to maximize your exposure. So those are some of the thoughts on, in terms of delivery and all those other things and the whys behind it all. But now let's extrapolate this out for the closing aspects of this. Like, well, how do we use this to get clients? So we got to remember, when it comes to online, anything social media wise, things like that, it's kind of a vacuum in a lot of ways. I mean, we've got billions of people on social networks and using the internet and stuff like that. So, I mean, obviously it's a matter of getting in front of people, but the tough part about social media is, especially if you haven't narrowed down who your message is for specifically, and or even more importantly, what you help those people with specifically. Like, I help coaches transition to a full-time business. The reason I can get some good traction is because not only have I narrowed it down really well and specifically is I know, okay, well, what social platform are those people on? Where are they located also? And what are the topics and points of interest for them? Excuse me. So I can talk very specifically to those people. And that's really important. So that's how you can start to get some traction. So if you're there and you're very specific, well, number one, you got to see, well, how easily can I access these people? Because I've had some clients of mine, mentoring clients that are pretty specific, but it's kind of hard to find them on Facebook. Maybe it's an older demographic, for an example, and they're there, but they're not participating as much as it would to be a different generation, like millennials or my generation, whatever generation I am at 42 years old, But either way, we're on social media a lot more, especially the younger generations, But so that's one thing to just consider is where those people are. But regardless of that, again, you want to get your message as specific as possible. You want to get your titles and topics as specific as possible for that population. And you want to pick a social media platform of where they are specifically as possible. And that's where the consistency comes in. And you've got to be on there week in and week out. And in some cases, day in and day out. I look at the people that are really blowing up social media and they're on there, many times a day, posting in their groups, posting on there, sending their emails out. I'm on there, but not that frequently. You've got to go with what works for you. But again, so in other words, how do we start to get the clients? Well, we're starting to build an audience from there. So when we start doing the Facebook Lives as a minimum, like I say, even if you don't feel like you're getting any traction with it, it's great in terms of you crafting your message, speaking your message, getting confident in your message, figuring your message out, number one. Additionally, you're starting to build a library of content. Look at my live Tuesday calls. As of my last recording, I was 116. Plus, I've done countless videos and Facebook Lives in between there. Now, I put a lot of those and obviously all my recorded calls in my university on my website, and that's compiled me up to 116 plus, probably another 50 plus videos that I've got on there. So I have got quite a library of content, if you will. But the point is from there is not only now do you have a great content library, so this can be utilized for other resources. Maybe it's a free downloadable resource. It could be used for a book that you start to write or create, a virtual program, a 6-week course, some of the content you use from there. It could be used for any other live events that you start to do in terms of topics for things that you're writing in your emails or live events that you do, right? You can start to pull from this. So at a minimum, if you're like doing this on a weekly basis and you're like, oh my God, I don't feel like I'm getting any clients, I'm not growing my email list from this. The reason I love setting my clients up with this and I set a structure up for them, and the reason I do this beyond all that is for everything I just spoke about right there. But then remember, it's like, okay, so now you've got this great piece of content. So you've got this video that you're doing. You can download it from Facebook. You can upload it to YouTube. You can create a YouTube channel. You could take that video, you can bring it to your blog, if you will, on your website. I call my blog my university, so you can rebrand it, if you will, like that. You could post them there that you can start driving traffic to. So any social media platform, once that's done, like I do my live calls, I actually convert them to videos. I'll put them up on YouTube, but ultimately I put it on my website, and I drive all my traffic to my website on anything that I'm doing online, because that's where I want people to go. I want them to go to my university. I want them to be like, wow, there's a lot of great content here. Wow, this is valuable information. Wow, I like this. Wow, this is a free offer. Let me subscribe to that. Name and email address. Wow, let me join a private Facebook group with Jeff. Let me join one of his live calls if I can. Either way, they get hooked into your system, if you will. Again, why would they do that? It's if you're providing valuable, relevant, specific information. That's my message to you. So a lot of you like, okay, my God, what do I talk about? What do I talk about when I do these things? What's going to help you with that, again, is I go back to, your headline. Who do you help with what specifically? If you don't quite know, or you've been racking your brain about that, it's like, oh my God, I can't figure this out. Well, number one, can you work with someone like myself? Hire me or work with me to help you figure that out. That's what I do. Don't rack your brain about it. I mean, you've probably read some things, seen some things online, heard a million people talk about it. So, number one, get some help. I can assist you with that. But if you're not going to go down that route, where can you start? What story can you tell? I mean, my 12-year-old son can tell a story about hurting his shoulder and turn that into, like, how does that extrapolate into helping people gain confidence, right? Was it the most coherent message? And you know what I mean? Like, well, for a 12-year-old, yeah. You know what I mean? But honestly, maybe it's because I'm his dad. The point is with the video I was telling you about earlier. But the point is that he can do it. I know you could do it as well. And you can tell us. You can tell a story. You can get in front of people. Like, you do it with your friends. You go to a dinner party. You go out to eat. You're with people at home, and you come home from the supermarket, and you're like, oh my God, there's this person in the line, and blah blah blah. And next thing you know, whatever. Like, tell a story. You can tell a story, and then just think, what's the main point of that story? How could that translate to, even if it's not my audience, meaning I know that audience. If you don't know that yet, well, how is that going to help anybody? Do that for 10 weeks to start off with, and see what kind of thread you're starting to come up with that. So if you're not quite sure of what am I going to talk about, just think of a story, and maybe you can figure out what that's going to lead to, even if it's general personal development wise. But either way, that's going to start helping you with those topics. And the whole objective is really getting your message out there. And then with this challenge I'm doing, Make Some Noise, if you noticed, those of you that checked it out, if not, like I said, go to the my pin post in my private Facebook group. The 3 points that I talk about underneath that, I say educate, communicate, compensate. So that's how we get the clients, is we begin educating, right? We get our message out there, and we start making some noise on a consistent basis, and we get it out there. But after that education gets out there, we've got to start to find the people that are reacting to it. And sometimes, like I said, it is a vacuum, and you don't get any responses. You don't get any comments. You don't get any likes. But the point is getting it out there, and any of those things that we do that we can start communicating with those people from those reactions, that's the objective to that. Or then it's using our media that we're creating to get it out there into different groups, into different platforms that maybe it can get more of a reaction to. Or alternatively, maybe nothing's happening online. Maybe you can't find your audience, or because you haven't identified it that well. So then you can take that message and take it to a live speaking engagement, and you get reactions from that, right? So either way, whether it's directly from the actual live itself or from a video that you then take to put to YouTube, to your website, or if you're not getting any there, maybe it's the content you've derived from that to do a live seminar where you get the content. But that's where you start communicating with those people after the education part. And that's where we start to create those sales conversations where we find out the needs of these people. And what are they, why were they attracted to our message? What did they learn from that? What are they going through in their world right now that my message is valuable for them? And why is it right now that they're looking to do something about that? And why now specifically? And then at that point, we know that the need and the timing, this is the sales conversation. This is selling that I talk about. And then I teach you. And then at that point, it's like, can we make an approach to say, hey, listen, I can't help but notice that you're really looking to go after X, and the timing couldn't be better. And those are your students of mine. You should hear that. You've heard me say this a million times. Is, listen, I can't help but ask if you'd ever consider taking a closer look at how I could assist you if you were to hire me as your coach. Or I can't help but ask if you'd be willing to take or open to take a closer look at how I could help you if you were to hire me as your coach, right? So that's that approach as I found that. But that comes from, hopefully that leads to compensation or for us to get compensated. But it starts with the educate. It starts then communicate, and then we get compensated from there. So that's kind of that thread. But you got to give it time. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's going to take months. It's going to take years. But what I'm saying is build that library, work on that craft, and get that confidence in your message and the way you speak using mediums like Facebook Live. And whether you do like my challenge, make some noise, and you never do Facebook Live again because you're on LinkedIn, or maybe you say, screw social media, I don't want to do that, I'm going to do live stuff. I still want you to use a medium like that to get practice speaking live. And again, it's not just a format like this is a live call. That's different from a Facebook Live where it's video, and that's another whole level. This takes a skill set as well. I don't have any notes in front of me. I'm just talking into my phone, and I've got a recording device in front of me that records my calls, sitting at my desk in front of my computer, speaking into this for, an hour or whatever it is, right? That takes a skill set in and of itself. Obviously, if you're doing just an audio call, you can have notes. You could have a script that you're working from. I've done that before on audio conference calls, things like that, where it was a big call that I scripted it out more. But still, I did it, or any parts that I read, I made sure it came from presented well. But it's different when you're looking into the eyes of a camera. It's different when you're looking into the eyes of an audience. That's that medium that I really want you to get good at. And then from there, the better you get at that craft, I'm telling you, when you speak live, there are going to be people that are going to be like, wow, that was great. And that's a reaction. And hey, you know what? I'm so glad you love this. Or so glad that you thought this was great. I'm curious, what did you connect with? What did you like about this the most? What are you going through in your world right now where, you really enjoyed my information? And hopefully that leads to a conversation, and that's where we can get clients from. But again, don't expect droves of people to be like, oh my God, this is so great. I want to hire you as my coach. Like, I'll just say it for the word of saying it now, that never happens. It can happen. Hopefully it will happen. But if you go off the fact that it will never happen, then you dig, then you start creating conversations. You ask questions like I just role modeled over the last few minutes to create more conversations, to connect, create rapport, create a relationship, and to see if they are going through something where it might warrant an approach, where we ask a question, where they'd ever, consider taking a closer look at how we could help them if they were to hire us as their coach. You might get a no. You might get a well, or I don't know, and that's okay. That's fine. But the time you ask that and the person says, yeah, tell me more about that, or you know what, I really like, and I know I need some help, I really like your stuff, like what would that look like? And then we continue that conversation. That's where it can lead to clients.